No. Put it over there so it doesn't get buried. So yeah, his fire alarm went off Monday night, so we stood outside, and it took the fire department forever to get there because they were so busy. So,
a lot of damage on the equipment or from use, just like replacing blades and having to clean off the equipment every so often just so it doesn't get overloaded with ice and snow. So that's all I have.
okay. Yeah, they were slick this morning. It must have just kind of melted a little yesterday, and we got that little bit of snow.
Yeah, there was some sleet that came down, and then snow, and then on top of it, and then it was a slushy snow, a little bit of rain probably mixed in there, and then it turned, got below freezing. So that's a bad combination. Just about have to salt every part of the road to not have some ice on there.
Anything else for Scott?
Oh, I don't have anything.
Thanks, Scott.
Okay.
Hey, you've got those papers for me to sign. Are they here, or you want me to stop over?
They're still here, so if you could stop over, that'd be great.
Okay. Number 3, consider hiring new equipment operator 1 employee for secondary road department. You want to tell us about this?
Scott?
If you asked me a question, I didn't hear what it was.
Oh, about your new hire.
Yeah, we that would be to replace Randy Atwood, who left back in January, and we have a couple of employees that are having to have medical leave for things like surgeries. So this is a really timely hire. We were thinking of not hiring till April, but we had to pump it up a month for various reasons. So it's Dylan Kaufman as the name on the resolution.
Okay.
A base wage of $21.86.
Okay. Do we have a motion for that?
I would move that we allow this.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye. Abby, are you still having problems?
Yes. I don't know who made that second because I can't.
Susie made the
see.
second on that. You may come in if you would like.
All right, it might make it easier.
Yeah, it probably would.
All right. I'll be right over. Hold on, just
Okay,
give me a
thank you.
second. Yep.
Okay, discuss and consider resolution approving Jefferson County and May 2080 agreement for environmental health services coverage from the local county EHS environmental health is absence.
Dan Miller had sent us a note on Friday asking that we table that because there was a change by Lee County on their portion of the 2080 agreement, and he said he had to go through all of the paperwork once again. on it before we could go ahead and make the final approval. I know we had approved it last time around, but with this change, that starts the process over again. So
Okay,
I would ask that we table that.
great. All right, courthouse security discussion. I assume you put this on here?
Yes. Bart asked me to
Sure.
have this on here, so I think I'm going to let Bart start off.
I sent a letter to the board here 2 weeks ago. One of the concerns I had was this courthouse security position. In that letter, I cited Iowa Code 331.653. It's general duties of the sheriff, which it clearly states the sheriff shall provide bailiff, law enforcement services to district court, juvenile court, associate court, magistrate court upon their request. Last week, we were up here 3 times. I was the one that was here for the verdict last week on the trial, made the arrest, we got in jail. So we've always operated that way. And so I didn't know where the board was going on this position.
We're still, talking about it. And so what's happened since we talked last is we got hit with a huge insurance cost. We just found this out about a week ago. We got $150,000 and anticipated expenses on health insurance and $41,000 on ICAP, and that's due to all the storms last year in the areas of Iowa. So we're really gonna be looking at things. Now, I know we did talk early on about could you provide services as needed, especially I know what Chauncey has mentioned, and Chauncey, please chime in if you're still on.
He is.
Okay, is for what family law cases is the most important to have somebody there?
Well, in talking with the judiciary, I think the most high kind of tension scenarios where officer presence, just kind of an armed uniformed presence without any kind of requirement for anything additional would be in magistrate court during an eviction procedure where both the landlord and the tenant are in close proximity with each other. Essentially, when somebody is trying to make somebody else homeless, I think that is one of the most emotionally jarring and potential for violent scenarios. And then in family and juvenile law cases where, if the government is considering removing children from a family, or if a very high conflict spousal situation is there's a lot of there would be an appreciation of a presence in the courtroom as a pacifying measure, I suppose.
And so do you, and I know you have no crystal ball to know, but based on past number of cases, how often would this be needed?
Well, during those 2 periods, I could figure out the numbers. The magistrate courts meets twice a week, and district court meets on Mondays. Family law is heard in the district court, so that's approximately 15 hours a week or so.
Yeah, I mean, if you're able to provide that.
We have in the past, whenever there's been a request, we've had somebody here. Whether it's for a certain case or a certain person you anticipate being unruly, but we've always provided that.
Absolutely. Bart, you guys are here within 2 minutes if called, and that's commendable.
And so.
Which we've now upgraded all the locks upstairs.
Yes, they're all working.
We have an alarm system, camera system in the courthouse. So that's why I wanted to bring this up on the agenda. It was where the board was going, along with Chauncey on this position, because I just want the public to know that I don't think it's needed. I want I want them to understand that it's not coming from me. I'm not creating a new position. I'm not on board with it. I just want everybody to know that.
Now, if you're able to provide that, and we know there'll be times, you may be stretched thin, but at least for the cases, I mean, Chauncey and Pat will have a good indication of when.
And this was something that was discussed at the Courthouse Security Committee meeting that you and anyone from the department was unable to attend on that day that you were at another meeting. But this was something that the Judge Gookin felt that should be looked at and should be taken into consideration for doing this. The county attorney at the time was the one that was bringing it to the committee to talk to him about it. I was there talking about the lock system that needed to be replaced, which we went ahead and had done because that was the most expedient way to get things working once again. They had problems with doors not staying unlocked, not locking like they were supposed to, not working as they should. And that had been going on for some time. We just hadn't taken care of it. And then we went out for bids for the company that installed all of that initially 10 years ago. And of course, this all failed at a 10-year time period. And so we had to do something with it. Along with that, there was other security measures that were being talked about for the courthouse, with change in the north door and the south door configurations so that we wouldn't have to look at, in the future, putting in hooped metal detectors to go into the courtroom with an officer posted at that anytime that the courthouse is open. And that would be at both doors when there's no court going on. And then most courthouses around the state have made it so that there is only one entrance door into your courthouse and one exit door. But I believe with fire restrictions, I don't think we can move that direction with it. We had a problem with the north door where anybody that wanted to could just use something to push the lock over and walk on into the building. That's been changed now, so that it's a more secure lock than what it was before. And we also added a second judge here in the courthouse as a home judge. And they've requested office space, which we provided for them, but we're running out of space that way here in the courthouse as well. And so we're continuing to look for somewhere to store court records off site because they haven't made any progress here as far as digitizing all the records, as the Supreme Court body has mandated that they should start doing, and getting that done so that we don't use up as much space as what we have been here in the courthouse. But those are all issues that are along with this, and I think it was unfortunate that you couldn't have had somebody at that meeting that day, whether it was just a deputy off the road to come in and sit in and take notes for you and then bring it back to you, rather than hearing secondhand of what the meeting was and how it went. So.
And one of the challenges we struggle with when it comes to budget is we have to provide space at our cost for the court and DHS, and that's about $160,000 a year this year.
Yeah.
So it's one of the benefits, I guess you could say, of having the court in our county. We're glad to do that, but it does come with a cost, and we have no control over that. That's mandated by the state. So yeah, as far as
What I'm saying is, clearly in the code it states the sheriff shall provide the services that we have in the past. Maybe we're not here 20 hours per week,
Right.
but when we're requested, we're here.
right. And Chauncey,
Yes, ma'am.
that code issue, is it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, bailiff duties fall under that section of the code for sure. I think one of the theories on the the courthouse security officer position not being a deputy is, while it would be an important position, at the end of the day, the presence is the principal concern. Just having somebody in the courtroom, standing there, being a physical presence and a security presence that's visible. Without wanting to diminish that responsibility, the duties of a deputy are certainly substantially more burdensome and onerous. Night duties, warrant service, high-risk traffic stops, things along those lines. So the security officer role, I think, would justify a lower salary than having a fully trained and fully certified deputy on staff for standing around in a courthouse to be useful, but where those talents might be useful in other places.
Right, well, and it's where we had planned on finding the money, it was not an increase anywhere. It was taking the nuisance money that we spend now on that, using that for part nuisance and part this position. So it would be a net zero cost increase because we anticipate that'll slow down now that we're getting the more challenging properties dealt with in the nuisance avenue.
Our contract for nuisance services is about $53,000 a year.
Right.
Right. So yeah, so this is not mandated yet, right, Chauncey?
It's not. There's some discussion and some kind of behind the scenes consideration of, I mean, I haven't seen anything officially from the state, but there's been a lot of talk of going to a regional courthouse model sometime in the next, well, who knows, sometime possibly in the next few years or decade, somewhere in that time frame. There are considerations for what courthouses would be selected to become a regional courthouse. Get a lot of feedback.
Yeah, somebody's got some noise coming through. I'm going to mute them. It was Mark.
So another consideration here would be in the event we go to a regional courthouse model. I think it's in Jefferson County's interest to have Jefferson County be that regional courthouse. I would certainly hate to lose our local court facilities. I think that a county like Van Buren County would not be able to survive the cut. I would not want to have to drive all the way to Wapello County for court services, and I don't think anybody here would either. Having a secured courthouse during court service would boost our chances of surviving that cut. But I don't want to speak out of turn. That's completely out of anybody, any decision makers in this county's hands. That would be a state court administration consideration. So I've got. I don't want to speak for them in any way.
Yeah, Dee, if I could say something. The ISAC legislation updates, the thing that came out to me is they have a bill on the 4th that will effectively try to merge 2 to 3 counties using a 28E for the auditor. I don't want to lose our auditor. I don't.
Right. Okay.
Madam Chair,
What?
this is Lee. I just wondered if I could speak.
Sure.
Thank you. What I heard Bart say, and if Bart, if I didn't hear this correctly, say so. What I heard Bart say is that his office is willing to provide, or not willing, can provide a physical presence. And the code says that that is part of the sheriff's duties, that they shall provide. If that physical presence is determined to be needed. It sounds like from listening to Darren that Judge Gookin is concerned and that physical presence is indeed needed. So therefore, the sheriff is required by code to provide that. I can't answer the question as to whether or not he can provide it the way that he's currently staffed, but I think that that's a decision that should be up to the sheriff. I think adding a $53,000 position, whether or not the money is neutral, the bigger question is whether or not we actually need that position if the sheriff, as he's indicated, can provide it. And then as far as dropping the Rust contract goes, you know, we always knew when we implemented that there may come a time that we would have to back away from that for financial considerations or whatever. So that being said, you can still save $53,000 a year in the budget by following the code and allowing the sheriff to provide that physical presence. I didn't hear Chauncey say that it was a 24/7, that it was about 15 hours a week. I do know that we send jailers with our prisoners. Obviously, that's not family court or juvenile court and that, and I understand that. But again, I reiterate, Bart has sat here and said, I can provide that, and if a physical presence is needed. So I don't know why we would want to consider putting a position that we heretofore haven't had, and I don't know under whose jurisdiction this position would fall. I mean, if it doesn't fall under the sheriff, I'm very uncomfortable with giving somebody law enforcement authority that is not under the jurisdiction of our law enforcement. So that's just me. Thank you.
Chauncey and I went out and talked to Bart and Jerry a while back just to see what their thoughts were. And basically they said, you know, most of the time they could probably provide somebody, but it depends who's off for surgery, who's on vacation, all those variables that come into play with staffing challenges. And what I'm hearing today is most times probably they could, so that's good. So we have had that conversation. I know there's been some concern from some other departments here at the courthouse based on some instances that have happened here, and the sheriff's office has always been very prompt and good to respond to those. So yeah, again, we're still talking through the budget, and so everything's quite timely now to see what road we go.
That's why I requested it to be on today, because I didn't know where you were on this position that you were creating. So yeah, I just want the public to know where I stand.
And that's good.
And I'd rather save the money for the county than create another position.
Well, since we last talked, we got increased with almost $200,000 increase in insurance costs. So yeah, this is a timely conversation. So yeah.
Dee?
Yes.
It would, this obviously is just me, and Bart may not be in favor of this, but it would seem to me that if the board now or in the future felt the need to have a physical presence when the courthouse is open continually, that funding that you would have for that, or that you would create for that, should go to the sheriff's budget, and the sheriff should provide that physical presence.
That would be the ideal way to go. And I'm, you know, I think we're not quite ready to go down that path, because when you get into that, you've got a whole higher level functioning person than we envisioned for this job initially, which is fine.
I understand that, and that's earlier when I brought up the fact that there's been new door locks, camera systems, alarm systems. We've taken security measures in the courthouse, and then anything that was requested of us, we were here.
Yep.
So, you know, those measures were put in several years ago for security purposes when this went across the state, and they formed a committee or whatever to be on a security committee meeting. So those measures were taken in our courthouse to ensure the safety of whether it's a judge or some other person in the courthouse.
Yeah. No, we really appreciate you coming, because, you know, Chauncey's told us kind of the high priority cases for when we really need somebody up there. And you usually know those pretty far ahead, don't you, Chauncey?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and if there was a wire cross somewhere and somebody's suggesting that the sheriff's office is not timely responding to security concerns at the courthouse, I hope nobody's suggesting that.
No, they are. That's why I said they are always here promptly and help when called.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying that, Chauncey. I'm just saying we've taken security measures, and we're always willing to be here. You know, if it's requested ahead of time, or on the spot, we'll have somebody here.
Okay. Any questions? Susie, Darren, comments?
No.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Bartley. Yeah.
I just have one comment. One of your concerns is nothing more than a BART with how many people got in there right now?
As far as deputies, 10 when we're told.
So you got 1 in 10 chance somebody can't make it versus a hire a single person to take care of everything. Looks like to me the odds of that person not making it is a heck of a lot less than the sheriff's department. I think that's a kind of a silly discussion. We got 15 or 10 people sitting there and ready when you need them if we call them versus one person may get sick and not make it for a week.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Again, with the budgetary concerns, the house evaluation is gonna go up, taxes are gonna go up. You've got the additional 200,000 right there. We have got to figure out how to cut.
Hey, we've been working on that.
I mean, if you're going 53 to 53 and just swapping them over and we don't need it, there's 53,000 right there.
No, I know. It's,
Okay?
we've been really trying to adhere to the 2% state, guideline for increase. And we were gonna be able to do that, and I don't know, we'll have to go back and look, but now with the insurance costs that we just got, we don't know, we may have to, we're still finalizing that.
I'm 7 years old.
Yep.
Stable in income as you can get. Gasoline's going up, electricity's going up, gas is going up, taxes are going up, and you want to add more. And these people can't afford it.
Oh, we know. We've had that discussion amongst ourselves, believe me. So, okay, let's go to committee reports and we'll do public comments, okay? Committee reports. Darren, Susie?
I don't have any.
For the DCIL mental health governance board a week and a half ago. And then again, they're waiting to see what the state does on funding. That's another unfunded mandate that costs us hundreds of thousands of dollars here in the county. And the state is actually looking at adding to make billing to make, there's a bill to make transportation a core service. Of course, it has no funding, so we're real concerned about that. There's an upsurge in referrals for behavioral health and domestic violence. A lot of that, I think, is probably related to COVID and all of that. It's very hard to keep direct service staff. And mental health workers on the front lines in some of these facilities are really getting compassion fatigue because it's starting to wear on them. We're having a discussion. Actually, I'm going to a committee meeting Wednesday. I brought up our mobile crisis center, which is a new service that's mandated by the state. I have two problems with it. Nobody knows about it is one problem. The other one is I gave somebody locally the number to call and it didn't meet with satisfaction. So we've got a committee of people that are going to work through that to see what's wrong with the system. It's a new contract and it's never been implemented the way it should be because of COVID. It's supposed to be a physical presence that comes and helps. Like either the law enforcement can call this number, a person that has a family member with mental health issues can call it. And these are trained counselors who can help diffuse the situation. So again, my pet peeve is not enough people know about the service. I'm working through all of that. So we're gonna work through the issues and are we getting what we're paying for with the contractor who's out of Iowa City. Right now it's in 4 of the 8 counties, Jefferson, Washington, Keokuk, and Louisa. So we'll see what else goes with that. So that was the main thing. Okay, public comments. Any public comments? Sure.
What about, this Fraser's office,
Sure.
25% raise?
Well, what happened there, that came to us last fall and we didn't have any information. So after that, we got information that originally he had hired 5 people, paid them less than other starting clerks in the courthouse. And he decided he could do without 4 or with 4 because he cross-trained everybody. So he was trying to increase them up to what kind of other like kinds of positions we're making. Again, no increase in cost overall. It actually saved some money because it was 1 less IFRS and insurance. I know.
It was only 3 employees that affected. The other employees were already at that salary range. 2 of them went and met their universal clerk salary range that he has over there for all of them. And 1 clerk still has 1 step increase to go before he is at the same level as all the rest of the universal clerks in the office. So, and that all came out of this fiscal year's budget.
So it's all within the budget. And one of the things is that elected officials within their departments do their thing, okay? And so that's kind of,
Sort of like
like
the
I
sheriff's department.
kind of like
Ought to
last.
be able to have his, do what he does with.
Our hope is, one of the things we actually have had to cut out of the budget, we've been trying for years to get some HR type of person that can really do all this, but we never seem to find money to do that. And that's one of the concerns. But yeah, no, I understand, because last fall, it was like, well, we didn't have any information, so we got the detail that we needed. That helps. Oh, I'm sorry.
Another thing,
Sure.
they mentioned, leaving out of house security places for storage in the judicial thing.
Mm-hmm.
What's the matter with the attorney building?
There isn't any place to store it over there either. There's so many records down in the basement. There's only 1 location I've found that's feasible in doing that, but it's in the fire station over here. That building is currently owned by the city of Fairfield, not by the county. We would have to reopen the 2080 agreement to have it moved over there. There is no elevator access to the basement where that would be stored at. If the fire department moves to a new location, which would be where the DOT buildings are at on Briggs and 4th and 3rd, right in there, the city would then want to take over the entire building over here and then possibly force our county health nurse out of that building into something else that we would have to find. And it's approximately a 3-year time period that the city is looking at for when they would be able to start a project and get it completely finished with a new fire station. So there's a lot of balls up in the air that are being juggled right now with that. So that's one reason why we're trying to find a location that's close by. If we were to move them clear over to the DHS office, if they had to have access to those records, somebody would have to go from here, clear over there to access them, and then bring them back or make copies there and bring them back, because that's the only other building besides secondary road department building out there that the county really owns.
We did look at the county attorney's office first thing, because that's what we thought. What about the county attorney? Well, it's those records are heavy. And
Yeah.
so getting all those upstairs and storing, no elevator, plus just the physical structure. And then there's a lot of storage already downstairs where they're stored. They have a lot of it.
Right.
It's a space issue, and so the sooner they can get this digitalized, the better.
The other part of that too is I talked to the abstractor here in town. who is probably the most frequent user of those records. He showed me which ones he used, and he had some heartburn about wanting to move them off-site here to another location. And what they're looking for is dissolution of marriage decrees to find out whose property is whose after all of that has taken place when it comes to sale of properties here in the county. And there are also other abstractors from other locations that come in and do the same thing, but they don't access court records like adoption records from the 1800s that we have stored here in the courthouse. So, and it's required that we keep those at a location that they can be accessed unless they are digitized and put online, and then there would be in the location that they would be able to access them there. But until we get to the point where we're actually starting to do some of this work and the court is actually starting to pay for doing that work, we're stuck with having 300 file cabinets, I believe, down in our basement right now with 2 large standing file folder cabinets worth of stuff that used to be in the auditor's office or the assessor's office down in the basement. Both of those rooms are currently full of records from the court, as well as a room underneath the treasurer's office that has court records in it. Plus, there are still court records clear up in the attic upstairs. So, you know, we have no room any longer. And the reason they were brought down here is because the structural integrity of the building was at risk with the weight of all of those files being stored up in the attic area. So when the building went through some remodeling, that was when that took place, but no real good solution was offered at that time. It was just, we're going to move them here and that's where they're going to be, kind of thing. So.
Does that help?
No,
Anything else? Okay.
Yeah, I was wondering, you just said that you can't find the funds to hire a HR person, but now you're trying to hire a security guard, which already is given to you by the sheriff's department and it's in their budget.
There's been some conversation, but nothing's finalized yet.
So do you have any other bids to do the weed and?
That's way too premature. That wouldn't even start till July.
Right, and weed commissioner's budget is $3,000. That only covers for him hiring someone to go out and actually do the weed work. The weed commissioner doesn't do any of the mowing or the spraying or application to get rid of the weeds out there, even though they have to have a certified state applicator's license for killing weeds. And pretty much what that job entails is if someone complains about weeds being out on somebody else's property, then they go out, look at it, come back, record who it is, send them a form letter saying they have 30 days to rectify this problem, and then they need to do that on their own. If they don't do it, then out of that $3,000, a person that's either going to spray or would mow is hired. They go out and do that work, and then that's billed back to that property. So that's what that weed commissioner's job entails. It's not somebody that's bidding to do that. It's a very small portion of work that was being done by the Board of Health and their employee, Dan Miller, and Dan no longer wants to take care of that portion of the job. So,
but that's not my question. Do you have any bids to be the weed commissioner and what's the other position?
Nuisance.
Nuisance. Do you have any other bids that would?
we have not had any bids. We have not asked for any bids.
You do have a bid. $6,000 a year.
From who? And was it formally put in, and was it formally requested from someone in order to do that?
I believe I told that person we'd know more in July and when we got the budget done, so it's too premature.
So then you do have bids. Or
Well, we know
that
somebody that's interested in
do that job for much less.
contracting. Yeah.
So I think that right there would nullify the need of the $53,000 a year position.
Again, we're still having budget conversations, so nothing's finalized yet.
Right, and also included along with that is that when nuisances are abated, somebody goes out and does that, there are cases where a sheriff's deputy has to be on at that site, as well as who is overseeing the abatement of the nuisance with the contractor that's been hired in order to haul all of that stuff away. Okay, so we're not even showing any of that cost from the sheriff's department of the deputy going out and doing that in what the expense of the actual nuisance abatement program is incurring. All that we ever show is that we pay Russ in order to do that, but we don't show any of these extra expenses that go along with it that you guys don't really see at all as taxpayers, because it's not able to be represented that way, because then that's just Bart's person going out and being on site. And we had to have officers out there of the last two that we did. One of which we thought we were really going to have some handful going on with it. And the other one seemed to not be a problem at all when it came to going out and working on it. So, you know, there's other considerations in there too. So $53,000 mushrooms up to a lot higher than that when you actually look at what it takes to do that job.
Well, not really, because you're billing the people for that money that's being used to do that. So technically, that's not loading up, because you're getting that money back.
Well, that depends on who it is, because
But still, on the top, whether it's written out that that's part of it, that is still technically budgeted in the sheriff's department.
no,
The officer going out there.
the officer going out there, but that pulls him away from other duties that Bart has for him to do on those bases.
But we have provided the services
Yes,
and the
you have.
plans on the last
You
three
have.
properties.
You have,
When the contractor wants to give the bid, we'll go out there with them, make sure there's no problem. And then with the last two cleanups, we provided a person to be around during the cleanup time.
and at last week's board meeting, we approved a contract for a cleanup on a major property here in town, and not in Fairfield, but in the county. And we're going to work through the process of trying to get them out there to do that actual cleanup once probably the snow has started to subside out there. But this is one that will need to have law enforcement present there, as well as the contractor that bid to clean up the site. Then the contractor is going to expect their money up front after they've done the work, and trying to put it back on the property owner who may not necessarily be able to afford a lump sum dollar amount. They're going to be asking that we put that on their taxes and spread that over a time period in order to be paid back. So the county is out right off the beginning and waiting maybe up to 10 years before we actually get all of that money back from just one cleanup. So
But I mean, theoretically, you're getting the money back.
theoretically,
So, I mean, but, so you're saying the security officer is going to be deputized?
They would be a peace officer.
Then who would be the supervisor?
Probably the county attorney.
that's one thing we have not.
Yeah, again, nothing's finalized. These evolving conversations.
That conversation didn't come up. I mean, with a peace officer, you have other restriction guidelines to follow. There needs to be a commission in place, because we're going through it now. And we had testing this past Saturday. So we have a civil service commission. We got to have proctors to do a physical test. We got to have a proctor do a written test, and it's all done within a commission. It's just not done at my discretion. So when it comes to law enforcement hiring, there's a lot of oversight to it.
No, we're really glad to know that you might be able to provide somebody for the, especially those family and juvenile law cases.
Oh, very good.
Oh, go ahead.
I just think that the money that was spent, because like you said, nobody's affected, but people like her is affected because she's been here 10 years. She gets raises every year, but now they're gonna be making the same as her, and they've been here a year or two.
No, that's not the way it works. Each office is set up differently with their own employees and by the elected official that heads that office. At one time a year, they all bring their budgets after they've made their requests to us to review and to see where we think that maybe there could be something cut if we need. Now, at our last budget meeting with Dee in attendance with us, we decided that we were going to cut nearly $80,000 out of what just the Board of Supervisors were going to ask for next year in order to try to offset some of that $150,000 to $200,000 that is going to be coming in because of insurance increases. So, you know, it's not like we're not doing anything. It's not like the board isn't looking over some of this stuff. It's a case where all of the elected officials need to be accountable for the people that are in their departments and their budgets. And they're required by state law to not grow their budget any more than 2% over what it was last year, unless you can make a justification statement to the public for that need. And right now, that's where we're at.
And we've tried very hard to hold it at 2%. However, it is going to be very difficult having gotten such a great increase. I can tell you, I've been working with a couple other prospective insurance companies, not to cut benefits, but to have the same level to see if we can get any better rates. So we're still working through that. And I don't know how long that will take, but what we have to put for the budget is the highest amount that would be levied. So we can always come down from that.
I mean, they always spend money either.
Correct. And believe me, we realize, I mean, I hear from retired people and I hear from farmers and, you know,
We have somebody that can do it, that is in the state code, who is to perform the duties here. So that has to be technically in their budget because they have to budget that because they know that they're gonna be here. So that's in their budget. Then you go and cut their budget where they're already not funded enough. Police department, sheriff departments, they're not funded enough.
I think we cut about 30,000 and that was out of mostly medical expenses because the last 2 years they hadn't been.
Yeah, that was a $25,000
Well,
And we
amount.
made it clear this
And
year.
we reviewed what those budgets were for the last 5 years when we made that recommendation.
but
Because at the end of the year, if you don't spend that money, yeah, you can stand here and say, I gave that back, but you really had increased the levy because of padding your budget in order to have that money as a just in case.
Tell you, we got more information this year from the sheriff's department than we ever have, and it was very, very helpful. And we literally went through all department budgets line by line, and we look across, and if somebody, you know, most of the time the numbers are pretty similar. You know, there's variations, like if they have to get new computers or software or something like that, which happens. We know what's coming with the sheriff's budget is a lot of communications equipment. And so that'll be a challenge for him to budget, but I know he'll be able to do that. And we'll do our best to work through that.
One of the biggest things that a sheriff department needs on our budget is just in case healthcare, whatever you took that money out of, and that's the one you go after. What happens this year, this next year, if something happens and they needed that money that was there?
Then they come to us at the budget amendment time and they say, hey, we need that back. And we'll say, okay.
But yeah, but then now we've allotted that money here, and then we allotted it here, so now we need to get back here where we taking that money from. And
But again, we've already said that
it's a shell game you're trying to play with our money.
It's not a shell game. We're trying to save you money because we thought,
Saving money by not putting somebody into place that we already have in place.
we haven't, that's not a done deal.
It is, it's in the Iowa code. He's the one.
No, the job that we're discussing,
It's
and
not-
you are trying to discuss, is not a made decision. It's not a finalized decision. It's in discussions, which means it may or may not happen. If it doesn't happen, all of the things that you've been talking about are moot, okay?
But if
So,
it does happen, you're spending money that doesn't need to be spent. Because it's already provided by the sheriff department.
Right, because you told us today you can provide it. Previously,
That's right.
it was, well, maybe sometimes and maybe not. So it's helpful to have that information.
Mhm.
And we
Well,
understand.
on section 612, if you would have read that, you would have noticed that's what the sheriff department is for.
No, I appreciate that, and they do a good job.
Your office or point of reference, the one time, or a few times that it never happened, where did the communication break down to where the sheriff's department didn't provide somebody when asked?
I don't know. Has it never
Has it
happened?
ever happened?
I'm not sure that's ever happened.
That's kind of what I'm going to
We've always responded.
That's kind of what I'm going to
Yeah.
So I just wanted to be asked that question, if this has ever happened before.
Nope.
My knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Demolition.
can you speak up a little bit, Marcia?
Be glad to. Couple things I've already said, we've covered the 53,000. I don't care if it's a zero-sum game, save it. Okay, the same thing with the treasurer's department. If he had hired 5 people and 1 quit, save the money.
And that's
Don't
what he did,
spread it.
that's what he did last
Yeah.
year. And there
Okay,
is
that's fine.
savings that were made there in that department.
You're coming across very defensive. Okay, we're trying to find out what's going on. And, with us, if something costs too much, you don't spend it. If you had planned on buying a new car and taxes went up, you can't buy a new car, but you can save it so that later it can happen. I mean, we're just spending, I've got $1.98 over here, well, let's spend it over here. And I just feel like we're not saving, we're just, and I hate to use the term that has been used already because it's not really, but it is. It's moving it from here to here, and there's no savings. I want it from here to the savings account for when that medical emergency hits, and his people can be taken care of. We're talking right now, 53,000 for that, another 25% raise over there. I don't know how Abby's feeling about it, but I'd be madder than heck. I'm in the same building. You guys oversee that. So, all you have to do is rank everybody, how long they've been here. You don't need an HR person to do that. You've got somebody you can call up and say, would you look at this for me? And spend that little bit instead of having a salary. Having somebody laying around going, okay, I don't have nothing to do right now.
That was my concern with that.
I mean, an HR person is not needed. The court person is not needed.
Can I say something? I don't mean to interrupt you, but we've taken a lot off, that we were gonna do 2 additions to the entrance to the courthouse. That's now off the table. The HR is now off the table. What else? The website is now off the table. We've tried to cut it off. We haven't decided
I'm
yet
not
this position.
saying
You know,
you haven't tried. But we're sitting here looking at it, and we're looking at $70,000 just in today's conversation. 53 and however much the salary is over there, and you know, it just, if it were any way to just sit and calm everybody down, say, no, that's going to general fund, it's going to general fund, it's going to general fund, and you know, that way we're not playing these guessing games. And Bart would have the control that he needs for the officer here. You can't have somebody walking around with a uniform and a gun that doesn't report to anybody. So, you know, sorry, just save it.
We've talked about that when we're, like I say, we're trying to get to the 2%, but with this extra insurance hit, I don't know. We have had one of the small departments give up $3,000, so that was quite appreciated and helpful. So,
Which was 1%.
yeah, so we've had some department heads work with us, and we appreciate Bart being here today. So, yeah.
And I'm willing to do whatever my part.
Yeah, we know that.
And my overall increase was somewhere around 1.5.
Yeah.
Last year, when Greg said it at this time, he was close to 3, I think a 3% increase. And so this budget year coming up, starting July 1st, I'm right at about 1.5%, just over 1%.
Did you get that Motorola, that software contract in there? For this next year, that, is it 21,000?
The Motorola contract, the one that's almost 30,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, but it's in your budget.
For this next fiscal year,
Because it,
No.
because it needs to be in there.
out of this fiscal year's budget.
Then
There was one that was supposed to be paid last fiscal year that wasn't sent or overlooked, that wasn't paid till November. So that one come out in November, and that was 17,000, I believe.
Mhm.
So, and it was supposed to have been last February when it was paid. So now we're going to enter into another 5-year maintenance and software upgrade on our console in dispatch.
Mhm.
So we, you know, so if something happens, it all goes down, it's replaced. But the first of 5 years is close to 30,000, and then it levels back out to 16, 17,000.
Mhm.
And we're gonna skip the fact of upgrading the whole console. Motorola's pushing that we upgrade, and it gets confusing from a K core to an M core,
Mhm.
and it's expensive.
Yeah.
And then you enter into another 8-year agreement.
Right.
So keep it running, so the communications don't go down. We just did the tower upgrade,
Mhm.
so, which was paid, over 60,000 of it was paid out of this current budget year.
Right. And how much is remaining coming out of the next fiscal year's budget?
Tower's all upgraded, it's all been paid,
So there's no more expense coming forward with the tower,
other than the
just general maintenance.
propane,
and-
electric bill, and that type of thing.
And you did budget for that, that wasn't there. Yeah, no, you, because wasn't that tower this fiscal year didn't about 150,000?
Yeah, I think it was close to that,
Yeah.
with everything done out there.
Yeah, about
We moved it from the
140.
courthouse out to by Walton.
Mhm.
So, it was an old MediaCom tower.
Yeah.
But, it works great now. And Motorola's pushing for an upgrade on console, but with that comes upgrades with mobile radios, portable radios, and it gets very costly.
Mhm.
And, we have to keep this tower going for a while. I mean, all our emergency services operate on it right now.
Right.
From fire departments to medical, all our smaller medical units in the county, they all operate off that one tower. Really good stuff. So,
Thank you. But just, yeah, make sure if there's anything for next fiscal year on that software you need to put in there that's not in there. We need it like now, soon, this week.
I understand that, and I had to put in my ICAP increase of 15%.
Right.
My,
and that's what
my
I would have
15% was $6,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but no,
Yeah.
like I said in the letter to the board, I was gonna try to change out mobile computers, not state mandate, like you say, when they started this, that the courts are paperless. Well, it's costing our taxpayers because this stuff phases out all the time.
Yep.
So we're operating under Windows 7. We're operating a state system using Windows 7,
Right.
which I don't know if they will at some point cut us off because everything's Windows 10 now.
Right.
I thought we bought $60,000 worth of computers a couple years ago.
Yeah, when they
Mobile computers,
I don't know what. there was
the
some
actual
computers.
hardware, not the software, the hardware, so that the computer that you would run it on was capable of running Windows 10.
we upgraded desktop models. In dispatch alone, there's 4 units
Right.
that were replaced, and then other computers
But
around.
there
the building.
was laptops included in that, if I recall.
Our mobiles are currently 6-7 years old.
Okay, well, it wasn't those things.
And it
This
was-
just a couple years
Those
ago.
are the ones that are in the vehicles.
Right.
That's the state's answer to, state accident reports get forwarded and citations, and we can do a lot of different things on them, but it's at a cost.
But again, that was a cost that was mandated down to us by the state rather than us saying that we need to upgrade to that, correct? Okay.
We're on our first mobile, is basically what it was when it happened
Okay, very good.
7-8 years ago.
Okay.
Let's see if there's, can we see if there's any public comments on here first?
Do we have any public comments out there? I can.
While he's looking.
I just had a question.
Sure.
Everything that has been talked about here today comes down to paper. We need to find another office, but we have the paper, we have this and that. What aggressive means have you got to get that digitalized?
We can't force the court office up here to do anything. So
Okay,
there's
that is
no,
a court problem.
that's a court property,
Okay.
court process, court office's responsibility. And until the court of Iowa either provides money to do that or doesn't provide money to do that, it won't be done. Because we aren't gonna pay to have it all digitized ourselves.
So you
Is the
can lobby
county
your
responsible for
legislators on that.
storage?
Yes, the county is absolutely responsible for the storage of all of those documents. Absolutely. And that's mandated by the court system of Iowa. So it's not something we can just go down and dump files or anything like that. But it either has to start from the office up here on the 2nd floor or be pushed down from the Supreme Court level and their justices who oversee the budgets for the entire court system here in the state of Iowa in order to make it happen. But again, people are pressuring them to not spend so much money because their money comes from the state's budget. And it's your state representative or your state senator who either votes to make the county do that without having to take it out of their budget and putting it back off on you as a taxpayer, saying that they reduced their budget, but so what happens to the property tax owner out here? Yeah,
If we have to go to the judicial end to get the funding, to get that raised up, that's something
that's where it has to
we all
go.
need to know.
That's something that needs to happen.
I think, we all assume that, okay, it's courthouse stuff, and it's not.
It's not, the courthouse is not the Jefferson County Courthouse. The courthouse is part of the state court system, and the courthouse, physical courthouse, is the responsibility of the county taxpayers. So We own the building, but they get free reign.
Well, and they keep
They give you
taking,
the crack and you own the building.
they keep taking more space. You know, right now they have all the second floor and then we got this additional judge.
They have, right now, the court has all of the second floor, a third or a little over of the third floor, record storage in the attic and record storage in the basement. And that's all space that the county cannot use because the court feels that they need that much space in order to perform their job. You know, I don't know how to explain it any better.
No, that's.
I would think they'd be getting better with some of that stuff because with the mobile computers I mentioned, it's
Well,
all sent to the court.
all the new stuff is that way. It's the existing stuff that's been out there since, like I said, since Jefferson County became a county in 1839.
This come up at some of your meetings you're at, because I know you're on analyze.
No, it doesn't. It does not.
Okay,
So,
do we have any public comments on Zoom? Don't see any. All right. Yeah,
I just wanted to thank the board for the opportunity and letting everybody speak. I think you guys did a great job today, so I just want to say thank you.
you're welcome. We like to know what's on people's minds because we do take budgets very seriously. So yeah.
You're getting hit with a lot of stuff, you're handling it well. I'd like to commend Art.
Art did a really good
The
job.
fact that he's got 1.5 on his budget, good job. Another one I'd like to commend is the county health.
Yeah.
They have gone through hell in a handbasket
We know that.
last year. And so I'm just putting it on record. And the other, Abby, thank you. I mean, she went through basically 3 elections.
And you have another one.
yep.
Oh, no.
Board election in
Thank you,
Cardinal.
Abby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk to her boss.
All right, any other comments? Otherwise, we'll continue on. All right. Motion to allow claims,
So moved.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, nuisance properties, our others. Let me just recap since we have so many people with us today. We've been down this trail. When I started, it was pretty subjective, and what, 4 years ago now, we tried to figure out a different system that Russ was contracted with. They've done a good job in making initial headway on our most problematic properties. The bottom line is the bottom line. It's like, how much can this county afford to spend on it? And I ask myself that all the time. Because currently in next year's budget, we have, I think it's what, $50,000 for cleanup budget.
Right, that's what we
And I
budgeted.
struggle with that when we're looking at 180, 90,000 in insurance costs. So it's kind of like, you know, nuisance aren't a problem until the people live next to you. then it's a problem. So it's also health and safety, which is probably the main reason we continue to do that. We know we're making headway on the most problematic properties, and we're hopeful that once we get through these 3 or 4, it'll slow down.
We've gotten through 2 of those
And
to this point.
recap what it's cost. I mean, one was like around $14,116. They get some scrap metal, which comes off that. And so our next step in this whole process is how we're going to assess the owners. Because if we put it on their taxes, we do not want them to be homeless. That is not our intent. That they can't pay their taxes because of this additional bill.
So the 2 that we've already completed, one project was bid at $14,390. It was awarded for that. Out of that, the person that cleaned up the property was able to recoup $217.35 of scrap for a final total of $14,172.65 for just the one property owner. Now, the county has to put up that money for that cleanup and then hope to recoup it back from that property owner, whether that's in a one lump sum payment or if that's spread out over time. The other property was bid at $14,095. $1,853.35 of that came back in actual sold scrap from that cleanup, which left a bill of $12,241.15 that's going to be assessed back to the property owner. So just in those two properties alone, we're looking at $25,000 that the county had to put out that had not budgeted for last year for doing these cleanups. We were hoping to use that out of pipeline money that we get from the taxes for it. Now, we have awarded a bid of $27,750 for this third cleanup, and we don't know how much of that is going to come back in scrap. We had 3 bids on that contract, one of which, the low bid, did not include all scopes of work that was asked for, and their bid was $13,500. The second place bidder, who we awarded the contract to, who had included all aspects of what we were looking for in the cleanup, bid $27,750. We have no idea how much of that is going to come back to them in the form of sale of scrap metal from that. The third bid that came in was $31,300 for out there. So we decided to stay with the one that we knew had all of the aspects of the contract bid out on it in order to award them the contract. And that was Chittick Tilling, Buddy Chittick. And yeah, there's approximately 200 vehicles on the property right now that we are aware of, spread out through the entire property. And this is a narrow property that goes way back out to the south, almost to the river. So, you know, until we figure out of those 200 by having Bart's department look through and see if all of the VIN numbers are either licensed currently or if they're licensed for storage, they have to stay out there on that property. If they aren't in either case, then that vehicle can be taken and sold for scrap through this cleanup process that we got. But there are also buildings that are not sealed up, that allow varmints to get into them, that are full of stuff as well. And unless those buildings are sealed up and taken care of, then they have to be torn down, okay? They have to be removed from the property, and everything inside of it has to be removed as well. And the lowest bid on that did not take that into consideration in their bid and make it part of the bid that came in. So that was the one reason for rejecting the low bid on that contract. So
this is to comply with our ordinance. Now, the other option we would have is repeal the ordinance and just go by the state code. But it seems like most people, and again, we love to hear from people on this one, you know, how much is the county willing to pay to clean up nuisances? That's kind of where we are.
Right, because again, that's all work that's done up front. Contractor wants paid up front. He doesn't want to wait for 10 years to get it back over property taxes. Most of the people that have, well, all of the people that are on this top 10 list that we currently have went through the entire court process and have been fined and are paying very minimal amounts on their fines because the court deems them to be indigent, which means they can't afford to pay a bigger fine, and they pay those over time, but then they don't go out and clean up on their property. They just leave it the way it is, or they continue to add to the mess. Or they go out and they'll move a pile A from here to a location B and say they cleaned up their property. And they haven't done anything other than move pile A to location B. And that's another frustration that we have with it. And that's why we're moving to the place where we're actually contracting somebody to come out and clean up properties. So, and I'm working with Pat McVan right now, trying to make sure that the contract gets awarded properly to the person that bid on it, and that we follow through with trying to get the final bills out to the property owners that we've already done this to in both of those cases, so that they can get a bill in their hands that says that they have 30 days to pay this, or it will be assessed against your taxes. And what manner that is assessed is something that's going to be worked out with the treasurer and their office on how we can do that over a time period. It would be similar to if a new road was constructed out in front of your house and you were assessed for that roadway back to your residential property tax, not your agriculture property tax, because you cannot do that. That's against state code. But you are given as a property owner a time period of no greater than 10 years to be able to pay that back over time. But the person, the county entity that built the road in the first place has to pay for that all up front again. And that comes out of whatever pot of money that is used in order to do that, whether that's bonding or if that's using secondary road funds, because it's a planned project for a 5-year time period plan. In order to take care of those types of expenses up front. But it's like anything else, contractors aren't going to wait for their money. They're going to want to get paid as soon as the work that they provide is completed. So that's why we're trying to budget $50,000 for this next fiscal year in order to take care of those upfront costs in what's going on with these property cleanups out there. So once we get number 3 done on our top 5 list, we're going to work down to the next 2 and keep working through this until we come a point in time where people notice that if they've been noticed about a nuisance property, that they'll clean it up on their own and take that initiative and actually do that, rather than just drag their feet and hope the county is going to forget about it or not enforce it, or as in the past, what has happened is that people have come in and asked for special dispensation from the board, and the board has allowed them to do that. We have one nuisance property that's been a nuisance here in the county since 2008, and it has yet to be cleaned up. It's one that moves piles around, so it looks like things are being done, but nothing is actually leaving site to be taken off and cleaned up. Buildings aren't being sealed up. They aren't being taken care of that way. So that's kind of where we're at with the nuisance property right now.
All right, so does the nuisance also include like dilapidated buildings and stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, they do.
Yeah, the ones we're starting with have been long-term ones, and the ones that have been the most problematic for
Yes.
the longest amount of time. You know, obviously with the costs, we can't do everything at once. At least we have a process now that seems to be working. One of the barriers was when the courts were closed for several months. That slowed it down, of course. Another one was during this process, the county attorney's office worked through electronic filing, which was all new, and that took a little longer. So there's just been different hurdles, but the system is progressing.
And again, Pat McVan has done an exemplary job of working through this and helping out the board, making sure that these contracts are in place and taken care of, and working with Russ so that we can get these people cited and into court. And then once they're in court, working through the court process that goes along with it. Because until someone has been through the entire full court process, the county can't go out and actually clean up the property and then bill it back to the property.
All right. Okay, we're at the end of the agenda. We really appreciate all the comments, attendance. Thank you, everybody. If you have any questions, feel free to contact any of us. Thank you. Motion to adjourn. All right. All in favor?
Good job.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Terry.